Alrighty, folks, Mr. Hansen here one more time for our CO2 Dragster project. And in this last step, we're going to take our dragster body. It's now been refined. It's fully assembled. We're ready to actually create the blueprints for our design. There are two parts of the blueprints that I'm going to ask you for. There is the assembly view showing the bill of materials and all of the parts from an isometric view, showing how all those parts are fit together. And then I want a multi-view drawing of the actual body itself, ideally with a 1-to-1 scale so we can see precisely how big different features of your CO2 Dragster body are in order to fabricate those designs in the workshop. So to get started with that, I'm going down to drawing. I'm going to create a drawing from design. I'm going to create the full assembly. We're going to create a new drawing. ASME is a perfectly fine format to use. And I'm going to change the sheet size down here to 11 by 8.5 inches. That'll be kind of like landscape view for my drawing page, which will make it a little easier to represent this relatively long design. So let me click OK. We'll wait a couple seconds. It's going to create that detailed drawing. And you'll see that that drawing will show up in your student folder as well. Before I insert my base view for these blueprints, I'm going to change the orientation for this first view to an isometric view. That's looking a little bit small. Let me change the scale here to 1:2. That's, I think, a little better from my assembly view. I think everything else looks fine. Click OK. And then right there inserts the assembly, excuse me, assembly view of my eraser. Let me go over to tables. I'm going to grab a parts list, snap that to this top right corner, and that's going to insert the parts list. I'm going to make a few modifications to this table, so let me double click that. I want to grab all levels of my structure, so I'm getting, even if there are some like sub-assembly parts, that's going to give me all the parts in my design. I'm going to turn off material and description since I'm not really using those in this particular parts list. All right, let me click close, and there I have my assembly view with a complete list of parts used in my design. Those parts are labeled by item number, identifies the quantity that I need for each of those parts, as well as giving me a part number based on the component name, which here is a descriptive name of the actual part used. You may need to move around these annotations just so it's a little easier to see what's pointing to what. But for our purposes, I think that should be simple enough to create the assembly view. So that's the first thing that's going to be included in our set of blueprints. Let me go ahead and save that. I'm going to call this tutorial demo design blueprint, since I'm including more than one detailed drawing. Let me save that. Now, what I want to do is add another drawing sheet to this set of blueprints that contains just the dragster body. So I'm going to go back to my design file, do the same thing to create a drawing. I'm going to create a drawing from the design. But instead of creating a full assembly, I'm going to select a specific part to create a drawing from. And I'm going to go over to my components list and grab my stock body. So now I've got my stock body selected. Where it says create new, I don't want to create a new drawing. I want to add that to my existing blueprint. So I'm going to select my blueprint file that I just created. Same format, and I want to keep the same 11 by 8.5 inch page layout. And so you'll notice, down at the bottom, it adds another tab to your drawing sheet to create a second drawing sheet. All right, to place the views of my CO2 Dragster body, I'm actually going to start with the right side since that's the most informative side in terms of the features of my design. And I'm going to change this to a 1:1 scale, which should just fit on my drawing sheet. All right, perfect. Now, the reason I want to use a 1:1 scale is because that is going to let me potentially, if I need to, especially if I have complex curves that I want to follow in order to fabricate my physical model, let me actually cut this out. I can print it out, cut it out, paste it on the side of my stock body, and use that as a guide or template to refine the final design. So if you can fit a 1-to-1 scale in your drawing sheet, that's ideal in terms of actually using your blueprints. We can create views for the rear view and the front view as well using this projected view. All you have to do with the projected view selected is click your parent view, your base view. If you go over to the side, that'll default to the rear view. And if you go above that, it should default to the top view. Click that little green check mark, and you've placed your views. Now, it may require a little moving things around to space things, especially with this 1-to-1 scale, because it is will be pretty tight on like a single 11 by 8.5-inch piece of paper, but it should fit if you're using the stock body. Before we finish our blueprints here, we do want to add some dimensions to this design because I want to know exactly, how big the features of my design need to be. And so things we might want to include are, things like the length, the height, the position of holes I need to drill. Like if I need to drill holes for the wheels, I need to know where those holes are going. I need to know the diameter of those holes. And if you have other features that you're going to need to implement on your design, I want this nose of my vehicle to be about 1/4 inch. I can include that, positioning of where the eye hooks are going to be. Anything that's giving me details on how to take this to the workshop and actually create this model. So add some dimensions to that, and that's going to give us a nice, professionally formatted, detailed drawing of our CO2 Dragster. And so your drawing sheet should have, or your set of blueprints should have 2 drawing sheets, the assembly view, as well as the detailed drawing of the body of your racer. If you do any other custom design parts, I'd love to see you add some detailed drawings of those custom parts. You do not need to add detailed drawings for any of the stock parts, just the things that you are going to custom design and modify.